Hi, in this video I'm going to show how to implement your own iterator. In the last two, I've shown what it is and some examples how it's used in JDK and using it with JDBC. So in this example, I'll try to implement my own over some array or something like that. So let's try that out. So if we go and look at this cool explanation here, we can see that we have a client, and client is not like client server or something. It just means any part of the program that actually want to use these classes here. So first off, we look at the methods here, and we can see that there's a getNext and has more method that we need, and we need to have a concrete iterator that can have like a collection inside of it. So I think I'm going to start with the concrete class, and then we can derive the interface from that afterwards. And also we need to have some kind of concrete collection that can actually create an iterator like that. And that we will also do an interface on that. So let's go to coding. So first let's try to create the concrete iterator. So I think we're going to just create a class called something like stupid like my iterator. And this is going to be our iterator. And the methods that we needed to implement here were, we need a collection, we need a state, and we need the concrete iterator to be used on some concrete collection in the constructor, and we need a next and more method. So let's try to do that. So let's go and create something like new Java class, call it my array, something like that. And my array is going to serve as our, let's see, going to serve as our concrete collection. So extends, and we're going to go for array list, and something like that. So my array is just going to be extending array list like that. And the next thing, we have our iterator here. So we need to create a constructor. And that constructor is going to take my array as a parameter. And we need to save that. If you look in here, you can also see we need to save the concrete collection as like a private field. So I'm going to say private, and then we're going to do like the my array. Going to have that private my array, and we're going to call it ARR, and then in the constructor we're going to say that this is equal to the supplied whenever we construct that iterator. So we need the array that the iterator is going to work on when we are going to use it. So the next thing we need to do is we also need, so this was this part and this part up here. We also need a getNext and has more method. So public boolean has more. This is one of the methods. It will just return false for now. And we'll do public my array. It should be whatever is inside of my array. So let's just work with integers. So we'll just return an integer, get next. I think they call it get next. I would maybe call it get current or something. I don't know. Get next is probably better because it will increment. And then just return -1 by now. And if we go back, and then we can see we have the has more, and we have the get next, and we have the concrete, and then we need the state of this. So maybe it convolutes it too much that I extend the array list. So I'm just going to have the my array method like that. And I'm going for the my array. I'm going to create a constructor, and I'm going to say that I want an integer array as the base here, and we'll just say and use this integer array also as a private field. We're not going to initialize it. That's to do that here. This array equals array like that. And then we'll just create simple getters and setters for that. So it's going to be a very crude version here where we just use that instead of using this. I think this will be an easy example. So now we have that. So going to put my array in here. And then we need to see if it has more elements. So we're going to create a private int here called, we can call it pointer, or we could call it something like, I think I'm going to call it index pointer. And we're going to set the index pointer to 0 because this is the initial value of the actual index pointer for this iterator. And if we're going to test if it has any more elements, we want to see if the index pointer is past the end of the list. So what we can do is instead of returning false, we can say that the array length, get array length, if the length of the array is smaller than or equal to the index pointer, not equal to, sorry. So if the length is lower than the pointer, so let's say that we have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4 elements, then the length of this would be 4. Then we're saying that if the index pointer is 4, then that is the same as the length, then it should actually return false here. So let's say here int last index is equal to that -1. And then if the index pointer is bigger than the last index, then smaller. Now if the index pointer, as long as the index pointer is smaller than the last index, then it should return true. The only problem, yeah, so let's go for that. That's fine. We'll solve problems later. So then we'll return if the index pointer is past the last index. This is to know if we have more. So what the one important thing of the getNext method is to increment the index pointer. So we can say index pointer plus plus, and then maybe we shouldn't do that before, because we want the first element of the array is always element number 0. Otherwise, we would want to start here with -1. So I think it's better to go with waiting with incrementing and then checking first before we return anything. So getting the next element, we would want to say return, and then go for this array, get the array, and then we want element of the index pointer, and then we can put plus plus here. So plus plus on this side of index pointer means that it will actually return the value before we increment the index pointer. So that means it will return 0 first, and then increment it afterwards, and then 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So when we call getNext, this will automatically increment the pointer. So that actually means that if we have something like an array like this, and we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, wow. If we have an array like this, it will start pointing to this element, and when I say next, it will go here, get next, get next, get next, get next, get next. And if I don't check if it's done, it will also try to get this value, and we'll get an array out of bounds exception. So that's it. So this is basically the most simple iterator I can think of. We can go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And whenever it says that it doesn't have any more, then we're done. So if we look further, this isn't really enough. So if I go into my main method now, and I want to do an iterator, so if I say my iterator equals new, my iterator, it says it needs something in here, right? Sorry. So it needs an array here called my array. But if we look in here, the way that it was supposed to work is really that the array itself should have the create iterator here. But let's try it like this for now. So we can kind of cheat in the beginning here. So we can just say, do like this, create a new my array equals new my array, and then we need to provide an integer array here. So I'll create that up here. Did I use integer or just int? I used integer. I'll just keep integer array equals new. Let's just put some direct data here, like some numbers, random numbers. And of course, needed to be an array. And then we put the int array into my array. And then we have the iterator here, and we put the array here. So now we actually have everything set up and running. So now we should be able to use a while loop on the iterator, just like you saw in the other example I did over here, where we can see we use the while loop while the iterator has next. Then we call next to get the actual element. So now we can say while it has more, and it's a bit a different naming convention. In Java here they use has next and then next, but I just wanted to follow this example here. They call it has more and get next, but it's the same. So now we check if it has more, then we can just print out the next element. Let's try to run this and see if we broke something, I think. So we have 5, 4, 32. Something is wrong. And you can see that this element here is not part of it. We do start with 0 though, but it's kind of like problems here, and this is one of the problems I didn't want to address until now. So you need to be careful here. So really we want to go one further. So I put equals here as well. And then we also get the last element, because if the index pointer is equal to the last index, then it's fine because we're incrementing the pointer afterwards down here, so it will stop before it makes any problems. So that's fine. So that's basically it. So we kind of injecting here into the constructor of the iterator, we can inject directly a myArray. But this is a very hard-coded way of doing it. If we look in the example here, it's very nice with some interfaces, both for the iterable collection and the iterator itself. So we might want to do something about that. So let's go for the myIterator and then try to create an interface for that. So I right-click here and I go Refactor, Extract Interface, and then I need to say OK. And the interface name is interface of myIterator. And I put it in the same package, and I say I want both of these methods to be part of that interface. And I do refactor, and I don't need to all of this stuff. So now it writes override here because it overrides the methods from the iterator. But now it's interesting to see if IntelliJ created something cool here. So go to my iterator. Wow, this is pretty cool. So now we have an interface called myIterator. So the other thing, so this is this interface here. The other thing is we want an iterable collection. So we have a concrete. So let's go for that. So this way I take this myArray thing, and I'm doing the same thing, going for refactor, extract interface, and I don't want it to call interface myArray because in here they called it iterable collection. So I think I'm going to call it iterable collection. And which method should be available? Only one called create iterator. Oops, I don't have that method here. So I'm not going to put these two as part of it. So I'm just going to go like this. And now I have an iterable collection. And that one is empty. So I'm going to say that I need a method called create iterator. I don't need to write public. So it's going to need a my iterator. Create iterator. And it needs to return the my iterator like this, right? Create iterator, and it returns the iterator back. And it's the interface that we want to return, not the concrete one, because that means that the client only needs to know about the interface. I'll show that here. So now we have a problem because this, of course, if it needs to implement iterable collection, it also needs to implement the method myIterator. So if we want to create an iterator in here, we're going to say new myIterator, and then we're going to just send itself because it needs a my array class in the constructor, and then return that as the interface my iterator. So it gets a bit convoluted now. So now we have like an interface for the collection saying this is an iterable collection and this is actually an iterator. And the iterator has get next and has more, and we have the create iterator. This way we can simplify our program now. So if we go into our main method here, we can simplify a bit because now we only need to know about the actual interfaces. So when I've created the array, I don't need to create a new iterator. I can just say array create iterator, and that creates a new iterator here. We don't need it to be the actual iterator. We just want the I, and also the array can also just be the interface. Should be, oh, it's not, yeah, I didn't name it my error. I just say that's going to be an iterable collection like that. So now I have an iterable collection, and on that I can create an iterator, and I can call the has more and everything, and it works just like before, but now I can use indirection like that. So that's basically it, how we can do something like that. And in this case, I'm also creating everything in main, so we're not completely free of using the myArray concrete class. But if we had a method or something like that that would just take an argument, like public void print array. So, and then let's say we were to get the my array like that. So this way we could, no, we don't want my array, I just want iterable collection like that. So then instead of this, we would say something like this. And then we would say print. I need to make it static, just a second. Then we put the array here. So if we imagine the main method is created elsewhere, maybe this is loaded from a file or something like that, we get this method here, which will be extremely decoupled because we don't get an array or my array or whatever. We just get an iterable collection. We fetch the iterator interface from that and then call the has more and get next on this. And this way we have complete, this method is completely, doesn't need the to know about my array or the iterator implementation at all. It doesn't need to know this class, and it also doesn't need to know anything about this class. It only needs to know about these two interfaces, only needs to know it can call create iterator, and it can call my iterator, and we have one of the most very important things that we should never like program up against concrete classes, but always through an interface for the flexibility here. So one of the gains is that we get less coupling of the elements. And also another cool feature is that it makes it very easy to change the implementation and everything as long as we don't change the interfaces. And we can also make, for example, I could make another kind of iterable collection. So I could create, now I have this my array. I could also call it my tree and then make it an iterable collection. And then this method would also be able to work on trees and so forth. So that's really the power of this, that we can put any concrete collection here. There can be many of these concrete collections, and they can reuse a concrete iterator if they can use the same one. We wouldn't be able to use that, for example, if I had something like a tree structure, because this iterator that I created, it's already the my iterator, is very tightly coupled um, to my array as it is right now. But then we would need to create, for each of the collections, we would need to create a concrete iterator for that concrete type of collection. So they would come in pairs, and both of them would share the same interfaces. So the client wouldn't know anything about which kind of collection or anything. It just needs to know get more, has more, and stuff like that. So this is basic decoupling, and one of the beauties of this pattern here. I think that's about it for me on this example with the iterator interface. So thanks for watching.